The context in which contract renegotiation takes place, of course, is the way that the contracts, as I mentioned, was awarded, and more fundamentally than that, the way the project was selected. So the proposition is that contract renegotiation is a lower level in the food chain, and quite simply, if the awarding authority doesn't take contract management seriously and doesn't award the project by an open and competitive and transparent procurement procedure, then it's very unlikely to manage contract renegotiations effectively, both from a resources point of view and from the signals that it sends to the economic operator. The four papers that we are going to discuss, I have already mentioned, and these were the questions which the contributors were asked to address. One thing that for me clearly comes out of the papers is the idea that if many of the contract renegotiations occur during the construction phase, it means that contract renegotiation cannot be entirely satisfactorily explained by incomplete contract theory. And I'm sure we will want to discuss the notion proposed by Professor Gouache of a freeze period on contract renegotiations. The more fundamental issues is the way in which contract renegotiation should be considered. Should it be considered on a project-by-project basis, or is there a case for portfolio or territorial management of renegotiations, i.e. where an economic operator has several PPP projects within a particular territory? Should there be some kind of centralised either information sharing about contract change or management of the renegotiation process, so that if one project is distressed, then the fact that an economic operator may have another project which is achieving a return greater than that foreseen, should that be taken into account in contract renegotiation? More broadly, if we find that contract renegotiation is not only more or less inevitable, but also in fact very difficult to manage to a favourable outcome in PPP contracts, what does this say about PPP as a delivery model for infrastructure projects? Should we be considering the capability of the PPP model against other models, such as, for example, the regulated asset base, or PPP models where the public sector has an equity share? So that is an area which may derive from our conclusions about the challenges of contract renegotiation. More broadly, is there a role to improve the outcome of contract renegotiation for independent supervision and verification of contract renegotiations? Should a contracting authority, an awarding authority, be required to have the approval of an independent body before it can make changes? Should changes require ex ante or ex post verification by state auditors? Would these improve the quality of renegotiation? And even more broadly than that, perhaps, where does contract renegotiation sit into the toolbox of good governance, which is excellently set out by the Sigma unit within OECD, who place public procurement in a broader context of of good governance, and some of those principles seem to me to be relevant to the context within which contract negotiation takes place. There are again a number of other questions which I leave for provocation and stimulation, which we may want to come back to during the debate. I've summarised for convenience some of the main causes of contract renegotiation and the options for the awarding authority where it is considering the renegotiation of a contract. And here I'd just like to highlight one point, the idea of whether or not when contracts are renegotiated it should be on the basis of a zero net change to the net present value of the contract from the point of view of the economic operator, or put a little bit more broadly, a zero net risk transfer. That is an idea which I believe is worth considering in the overall context of the renegotiation of PPP contracts. The final point I want to make is that there are a number of ways in which the public authority can achieve some kind of compensating adjustments from the SPV, the concessionaire, some of which are financial, some of which are regulatory and non-financial. So with that introduction, which I hope will provoke and stimulate some thoughts and some comments during the course of our event, without any further ado, I'm going to hand the floor over to Ron Fisher to present his paper on the renegotiation of PPP contracts. So, Ron.
Thank you.